I'm making this video of this Minolta X-700 35mm film SLR camera to help you to see as I test it and give you my assessment of its condition and to give you some assurance that you've watched it in operation. This one is equipped with the MD 50mm prime f1.7 lens. This is the later one with the 49mm filter thread and the locking minimum aperture that works with the camera's program mode that we can set here. And what I'm going to do first is turn it on. It is on here, and we're going to step down through the shutter speeds. So we're going to start up here at 1/1000th, and I'm going to remove the lens and set it aside so we can watch this action inside. There's 1/1000th, 1/500th, 1/250th, 1/125th, 1/60th, 1/30th, 1/15th, 1/8th, 1/4 second, 1/2 second, 1 full second, and the bulb setting, where the shutter stays open back to the pressure plate there we can see as long as I hold the button down, and when we release it, it's back. This camera features a nice self-timer. It's an electronic one on this one, and so to activate that we pull up on this lever to show this red bar here. We'll set this to a higher shutter speed, and then as we press this we see the light blinking. It will start to blink faster, and then it's near the end of the cycle. And there we saw that go. We can shut that off by doing that. Then it's back to normal operation. And if we set this to a longer one, we can look in there and note that we see the aperture blades closing properly as they're supposed to during shutter operation. It also has the stop down preview button down here, so we can see that's working well. Let's take the lens off and look at that for just a moment. This one has the very smooth focus that's typical of all these Minoltas that I've seen. I can take the locking aperture off and we can see it clicks nicely at all these settings. And at minimum aperture we can see the blades are very quick, snappy. I don't see any oil on them. Now when I look through this lens toward a light, I don't initially see much, but I did do a test with the little LED flashlight here, and when I do that I do see some areas of specks down inside there. Some of this is on the surface here, and so let's make sure that's cleaned off with the blower. But I do see a little bit of haze down in there and specks at different levels, and I don't expect you to be able to see this on my video, but be aware that I'm doing this myself and I'm looking at it. And we can blow off the dust on the back there a little bit too. Looks a little better. But so there is some contamination, some particulates, and a little bit of light haze in there. So be aware of that. Now we're going to put the lens back on the camera, and we'll look at the top. This one has a audible warning if it senses that you're going to be in a light condition that is too low, so that the shutter will be open too long for you to hold the camera steady. And so I've intentionally set this on f22, and I'm going to block off the light entering the camera, and so we can hear that. Now if I were to open this way up to f1.7 and point the light right into the camera, it won't do that, because it was able to set a shutter speed that was fast enough. So we can see that that function's working. If we look over here, we can see this is where we set the ASA, or ISO value as people know it better today. and it goes from all the way from 1600 all the way down to 25. So that's a pretty good range. I'll set it at 100. It also has exposure compensation here that can be used in certain situations. You can go +2 to -2, and I'll set it back at the 0 center point. And I'm going to shut off the audio part here just so we don't hear that as we go forward. Looking at the back here, we've got the rewind crank. That looks good. If you pull up on the rewind crank, the back pops open and we can see inside. Let's watch the film transport and the shutter curtains. The action looks pretty good. If we move over here, the pressure plate looks good, clean and nice. And one thing I see about this camera is surprisingly clean door edges. I don't feel any sticky goo on there from light seals breaking down. If we look at the piece of foam here in the edge in the door, that actually looks and feels pretty good. And I don't see much, if anything, printed off here on its mating surface. So it looks like the light seals on this camera are still very serviceable. I don't know if they've been replaced. This is a camera that's typically over 30 years old now, but it looks really good that way. So that closes properly, and if we look here at the strap, this is a Minolta strap, and it's got a place for holding an extra set of batteries if you want to carry those with you. It's got this shutter blind that will slide onto the back of the eyepiece there, and that serves to prevent stray light from entering the back here when your eye isn't up to the camera. If you have it on a tripod, you want this back viewfinder blocked to prevent stray light from entering in here and affecting the metering. And it comes with this Minolta branded cap that is in good condition and fits on there. So all in all, a pretty good example of the Minolta X-700. It's used, but I would say not abused. A little bit of fog, haze, and dust in the lens, but not real bad. And it should be ready to take some pretty good pictures.